Hi everyone, welcome to the first ever Anime Feminist podcast. My name's Amelia, I'm the editor-in-chief at animefeminist.com, and I'm joined by members of the AniFem team, Caitlin Moore, Lauren Orsini, and Peter Fobian. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Caitlin. In addition to working with AniFem, I'm the owner and writer for the blog I Have a Heroin Problem. Heroin is spelled with an E. I've been watching anime for about 17 years, and I've been doing feminist analysis of anime for about 2.5 or 3 years.
Hi, I'm Lauren. When I'm not writing at Anime Feminist, I write for my own blog, Otaku Journalist, my Gundam blog, Gunpla 101, and I also do reviews for Anime News Network. My favorite kinds of anime are sports anime and, of course, mecha anime.
Okay. I'm Peter Fobian. I'm a contributor at AniFem, and I'm also an associate features editor for Crunchyroll.
That was very succinct.
Short and sweet.
Okay, we're going to follow up on a post that we put up in January, which ranked all the season premieres of the currently airing season of anime. And we're going to look only at the top 10 in the rankings and see which ones people are still watching, which you've dropped, and why. There's about, I think, 4 or 5 episodes now for everything, so I think we have a pretty good idea of what we're interested in. So we're going to start at number 10, which was in the problematic but might improve category. And number 10 is elDLIVE, which I know you were looking forward to, Peter. How do you feel about it now?
Cutting
Good
deep
start.
right from the get-go. Yeah, I really like the art style in the manga, but I'm not seeing. I think I pretty much dropped it after this latest episode. It seems like a Kodomo anime or something like that. A lot of the themes are very kind of heavy-handed. Like in the third episode, he was doubting himself. So has anybody else been watching the show or watched the first episode?
I got as far as the
Okay.
second episode.
All right, so Dolo, the little alien inside his body, like becomes transparent, and he says, "It's because you're doubting yourself." Like okay, well, and then
Anime logic.
Yeah. So later on, he becomes solid once he gets his confidence back, and then he went, "I became solid again because you got your confidence back." And I was like, "Okay, I after it was explained to me, I got it," but I don't.
Well, how old is the intended audience?
I wasn't quite sure on that because I heard the different things about the manga, but it seemed from like the visuals and everything, it seems like a young show. So I guess I can't blame it for being like that.
Yeah.
So the kind of age that still likes looking at underwear, though, since every 5 minutes they're blowing
Yes.
wind up that girl's skirt.
I guess maybe that's
Yeah.
what fooled me because there's so
Yes.
much fan
You know
service
what?
despite everything else.
I've been reading Bakuman. I have a new theory about why people are not as bothered about fan service in
share.
Japan as they are here.
Mm-hmm.
And it is because Shonen Jump series aimed at like 8-year-olds will have like panty shots and stuff like that. Like if you read weekly Shonen Jump has fan service oriented series in it, so they get desensitized to it from a very young age, and eventually it's just like if you like it, you like it. If you don't, then whatever. So yeah, like this is just fan service. Who cares? 8-year-olds will still watch it.
I guess it's very. I think maybe they consider it unoffensive, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But despite that, I really like Sonokata as a character. I think. I mean,
Yes.
despite the fact that she spends most of her time trashing Chuta, I don't know. She's very self-confident, and I don't know. Her insults are pretty good too. So maybe I do like that part.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
number 9, Masamune-kun's Revenge.
I keep telling myself I'm gonna stop watching this, but I keep watching it. Help me.
I don't know. Well,
No, I think that's been exactly my experience, actually.
are you guys caught up?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's just, everyone's so terrible. Just every character. You think you found someone to root for, and then you have not.
But see, it kind of has that Always Sunny in Philadelphia appeal for me, where everyone is so
Yes.
dislikable.
That's what I was going to
that
say.
it makes it very entertaining. And I've got a lot more into it since realizing I'm not expected to like anybody, and that's fine.
Well, and like his plan was obviously awful, but it's also like set up to fail. So
Yes, exactly.
yeah, pretty
So,
much.
like, are they likable but also just incredibly incompetent? Because that's part of Always Sunny.
That's an amazing
yes.
combination. Yes.
Yeah, every
exactly
plan
it.
just goes awry.
Yeah, they could
It's pretty
literally
great.
be doing nothing and accomplishing more.
I mean,
Yes.
yeah, as Masamune-kun's revenge continues, it seems like everyone has a terrible plan. Just
Yes.
every character has this really bad plan, and it's going to fail because they're a bad person. And it's very entertaining to watch.
It really is. I mean, Masamune-kun's idea was that he would just show up and be hot and this girl would fall for him. And the fact that she's making him work so hard for it, it's like, that's exactly how it would be, of course. He's shown up with absolutely no interest in her. And when she confronts him about it, he just can't think of anything to say to her. It's fantastic. I'm really enjoying it, actually.
Yeah.
He has not thought this plan through. Like,
At all.
you would have thought at some point he would have to think of what he likes about her.
Yes. Exactly.
Well, that seems to be
You
the
know-
problem with his plan, is that he actually genuinely still likes her. That's the problem. Because he wants to just trash her life, right? So, and he's like...
That's what he says, isn't it? But he's not doing a very good job of it. I mean, if his plan works, then she's going to end up with a boyfriend who's the hot new transfer student. So it's not the greatest plan to ruin his life.
Well, and
ruin her
Yoshino's...
life, sorry.
Yoshino's only helping him because she says getting broken up with will be good for Aki. It'll help her out.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm helping you. So,
We'll see.
awful plan. Pretty bad plan.
Okay, number 8, Fuuka.
Ugh.
Anyone still watching this? White Earth.
I just... well, the first episode was just like Panty Shot City. And also, well, I guess I'm a little... maybe prejudice is the right word, because I kind of know a bit about where the story goes, and
Right.
this it's like it falls into my like laziest melodrama category of writing. So I like was completely uninvested in watching it.
And that's a twist that's coming up that we have to wait and see, apparently. People who've read Fuuka, the manga, I think have been quite coy about it for the few weeks now. And everyone, like me, I have no idea what's coming. But I'm not really looking forward to it. So sticking with it until then and see what happens, I guess.
My
See, I'm
personal...
just-
I'll go for it.
I'm not watching Fuuka, but I don't know the twist, but I'm just looking forward to the inevitable fallout when the twist comes, because I just love seeing people get really upset about media that I don't care about.
Oh, the ReZero effect.
I'm kind of terrible that way.
But you're
I'm-
watching
I'm-
ReZero now, so you will care soon too.
Yeah, you'll know
Oh,
what that
Oh
means.
God, I hate that I'm starting to care about ReZero.
That is the ReZero effect right there.
Oh, I hate it.
I'm right there with you though. I'm watching Fuuka closely just because I want to see the reaction by people. My theory is that it's going to lose a lot of viewers, but everybody else is just going to be screaming, and I think it'll be pretty fun.
Right. Okay, next on the list, number 7, Seiren. Anyone still watching?
Yes.
Oh, I am, but Amelia, I think you said recently that you couldn't bring yourself to watch episode 4 because the whole appeal of Seiren is that Tsuneki is fantastic. And, well, also the writing is very clever. But now I'm like, I got so invested in Tsuneki.
Exactly.
And now I don't even know who the new person is, the new love interest. And
But I hate her already.
because she's not Tsuneki. Yeah, so I just have been a little resistant to starting the new arc. But that's how these shows go.
I mean,
Does-
this is a problem with
happened
this
to
kind
the,
of format, isn't it?
Mhm.
Apparently there's a romance writing piece of advice, which is when you write a romance story, the first couple you see together will kind of imprint on you. And if you want to set the person up with someone else, you have to work doubly hard to kind of get the readers or the audience invested in that new relationship. But Seiren and anime like it do that on purpose. And I think it works if it's based on a game that has that kind of branching format. But Seiren's not, is it?
But you know, that's what's so good. I can't believe I'm saying this, but that's something good about Jinjo Romantica, which is bad in pretty much every other way. But I like that they show 3 different arcs.
We brought
that
you
are
into
all
the
3
bad
different-
opinions, I can see.
Yeah, all 3 different love stories, but with 3 different couples. And it's easier, because I can know at least that the couple I liked is still together.
Right, so if Seiren were now looking at a secondary character and pairing them up with a different girl, that would work much better, right?
Yeah, I'd like to see, like, the main character's best friend who's really into studying hook up with someone, maybe?
Yeah,
Well,
equal.
Also, it's sort of implied that, like, at the end of the 4th episode that they get together in the end, like, after, you know, because she goes abroad, and then, like, the final thing is, like, 4 years later, she comes back, and he's working at the restaurant that she used to work at. So no matter what happens in the next 8 episodes, you're always wondering if that's the ultimate end anyway. So I guess most of it is just surrounding him instead of Tsuneki, who I think was the standout character, really.
She was great. And we've got, I think you talked, Peter, about the kind of way that ecchi is presented in this one.
Oh yeah, it's so weird because it looked like it was setting itself up to be a really fan service heavy series, and there's a lot of like sexual content, but it's all in the form of like jokes and dialogue. So it reminded me of like an American sex comedy kind of, instead of just like constant panty flashes. She's just talking about the raunchy sex that they're not actually having.
Yes.
I thought that was so funny, that her reaction to people being like, oh, Tsuneki, people think you're kind of a slut. And she's like, oh, let me tell you what I'm doing. Let me own that.
Yeah, I was so surprised when that happened. I mean, it was hilarious, but I couldn't believe that somebody, like, I haven't seen a character like that, I don't think, ever in anime before.
Yeah.
12
episodes of her would have been great.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I love their friend, the furry. The playing rabbit.
Oh, that one.
What the heck was that?
That was weird.
Okay, we're in the next category now, I think, which is recommended with caveats. And the next in the list for that is Gabriel DropOut. Is anyone still watching that?
Oh,
Yeah.
I am.
Are
I'm
you?
current. Yeah.
What do you
This
like
is Lauren
about it?
talking. Okay, what do I like about it? It's just one of those shows that I can just turn off my brain with. I really like basic moe shows. They're just cute girls doing cute things that
Yep.
I can just totally unwind with. Another example of a show that's very similar to this, I think, is Engaged to the Unidentified, which was just about a bunch of girls doing random stuff, often not very well.
Kind of a lucky
Does
star thing.
Yeah, a little bit Lucky Star.
Does Gabriel DropOut count as moe?
I think it does, because
Interesting.
at least Satania.
I do
So
have to
Gab-
admit,
Gab moe.
I do feel that way about Satania. I guess I have a weakness in series. If I see somebody eating alone in a stairwell, it's just instant empathy for that character. I don't know what it is, but I am.
Oh,
We're getting an inside
that's
view
your
into
moe.
Crunchyroll now.
Except for Ray in March Comes In Like a Lion, and I don't know why, but
No, that's just your moe, Peter.
yeah, I guess that's
what-
my
That's your
moe.
moe.
I don't know. It's just so sad. But like
Okay,
after
anyone
that,
who sees Peter eating alone in a stairwell in Crunchyroll, please eat with
yeah,
him. Be
oh my
generous.
God. But yeah, now I don't know what I want for Satania. She's kind of bad, but I hope she doesn't get ostracized or anything like that by the other girls, I guess.
I love characters with terrible personalities, especially when they think they're great.
Well, that's
Insight
her.
into Lauren's psyche now.
That's my moe. That's what I love about Satania.
Yeah, I think she's kind of the biggest character so far. You thought it would be Gabrielle, but Satania is just always the like focus of all the jokes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I stopped watching it after the first episode. Has there been any kind of story development, or is it still very much like that 4-panel kind of humor?
There's a little bit of how we met among the girls, like Gabrielle and what is the demon's name? Vignette. I don't know how they pronounce it, but it looks like Vignette or Vignette.
Vignette is how she
Vignette, I
pronounces it.
think
Yeah.
is it? Okay. Yeah. I thought that was pretty interesting, because they were explaining how they met, and the other angel is like, oh yeah, and Satania's like, wait a moment, just over and over. So she's I guess she's the bokeh?
Well, they were describing how Gabrielle used to be a good girl and she couldn't believe it.
Yeah, she just could not get over it.
Yeah.
Okay, and speaking of good girls who are bad, Saga of Tanya the Evil. Who's watching?
Me.
Me. Lauren, Caitlin?
No.
Wow.
It's
Nope.
not really. It didn't look like my scene, so.
Well, yeah, one, it didn't look like my scene, and two, the stuff that Peter's saying about it, where people are like, is Tanya the evil bad? And people are mad that you suggested that?
Well, I think my concern is that there are people who are watching this who don't realize that Tanya's an awful person.
Isn't it in the title?
Yeah, but I don't know.
That's always the problem when you have shows about, terrible people. Like, we see it here with, like, Mad Men and Breaking Bad. Like,
Yes.
if
And
they're
Gundam,
written,
actually.
yeah, if they're supposed to be awful, like, if you make them look cool, people will aspire to that, which is, unfortunate because I think I want there to be room for that sort of character.
But in Gundam, the bad guys are literally Nazis, but we're like, they're so cool.
Yeah.
The Char effect.
Mm-hmm.
I think for watching the series for me is kind of like watching There Will Be Blood, or I guess a more relevant thing to say would be Death Note, because it's like you really want them to fail, but it's really fun to watch them succeed.
This is
Well,
Tanya.
Yes.
Tanya's
think-
succeeding, but she succeeds. Sorry, go ahead.
Kind of.
I mean, I've got a big bone to pick with the Obata creative team, because honestly, like I think that they think their characters are great and brilliant, and even though they're bad, like they still write them aspirationally. I don't know. I don't like those guys. So
It sounds entirely reasonable from the scans you put up on Twitter.
yeah.
I think for me, for Tanya, the appeal is the fact that you've got her internal monologue where she is still this middle-aged salesman. When she's still like sucking up to her superiors, and she's still kind of thinking about how she can get a cushy job away from the front lines, and she just keeps shooting herself in the foot and ending up further and further away from what she actually wants, and it turns into a bit of a comedy character, which I wasn't expecting from a show called Saga of Tanya the Evil.
Yeah. I think that's that she's finding success, but not in the direction that she wants it.
No, exactly. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that people talk about how she's a Lolita character. Like, have you guys heard this kind of this view of the series? The impression I got is that people are referring to Tanya as Lolita just because she's a young girl, and that doesn't really sit right with me.
Because she's actually a middle-aged salesman.
She's actually, she's as far from like, an appealing young girl as possible. I mean, she's very young. She's like, she wears completely masculine clothes. She wears a military uniform. In her head, she's a man. She's not even a nice man. And I think that they've just gone out of their way to try and make her unappealing. But the response is still she's Lolita because she's young.
Yeah, I do. There's kind of like she's like fascinatingly strange. It's kind of like watching. There's like so many like feelings I get watching the show. Like it kind of feels like a Chucky movie, like Child's Play, just with how like this little like doll like creature murdering people, and these like horrifying expressions she makes and stuff. I guess like physically, just body wise, she meets that aesthetic. And I guess that one episode they made her kind of dress up in a goth lolly dress. But
her face was horrified.
Yeah.
She looked appalled.
Well, you watched the latest episode too, right?
Yes.
Where she they fulfill their military obligation of warning them that they're about to carpet bomb them by Tanya getting on in a cute anime girl voice saying like, "We're going to proceed with bombardment,"
and then just glaring at all of her inferiors. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's part of the joke, but maybe not everybody's in on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to note that they're not doing anything with the gender aspect. We get no sense that this man is uncomfortable in the body that he's in now. That's not even a factor. His aim is just to get that kind of success and recognition regardless of the body he's in, and he sees the fact that he's in this body of a, what is she, 10, 8? A very young girl.
12, I think.
She's
something
12.
like that.
Okay, sorry.
Because they said it's been 10 years.
Okay. Well, then he's in this kind of 12-year-old's body, and the only thing that concerns him about that is that she has to work harder to get respect. But other than that, there's absolutely no exploration whatsoever of like what it means for a man to be in a woman's body. So this isn't remotely related to trans issues.
Yeah, I think they've steered pretty clear of that. Age is also
Very
like
clear.
a big. I think a lot. Just as often as they say you're a girl, they always say you're a little girl. So they're also just referring to the fact that she's like 1/3 their size and probably shouldn't be this smart.
Or cruel.
That's also weird.
Okay, the next one in the list is Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, which I know a few of us are watching. Who's watching it?
I'm watching it.
Oh, I
I'm watching
am.
it.
Yep.
I think that's one of the most popular series this season.
Yeah, I think so. So why are people enjoying it? Give us your thoughts.
It fills the hole that Yuri on Ice left.
I wouldn't quite put it at that for me, but you know, it's cute, it's fun. It doesn't feel exploitative of the characters generally. Like that's always sort of my litmus. Like, do I feel like the characters are being exploited or for like the viewer, or do I feel like, you know, they are you know, doing things in their own, God, I'm not wording this well. Do their actions make sense for who they are, and more or less as people, and that's sort of how I feel about Kobayashi. They act more or less like people, with some exaggeration, obviously, but yeah.
I mean, it's not as cartoony as I was expecting, for sure. Like,
Yeah,
even though they've
Kobayashi's
got...
a mature character.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a very entertaining sitcom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it kind of hits that Seiren thing too, where there are a lot of sex jokes, but a lot of them are just based on how perverted Toru is, and not necessarily. I mean, there are parts where she just like strips for no reason, which are not. It's a mixed bag, but yeah, just a lot of it's like her sniffing her clothes and stuff.
Yeah, I hated the stripping scene in episode 1.
The stripping scene wasn't good.
Yeah.
It wasn't good.
But they haven't done that again, I don't think.
I think they referenced it. It seems like it's just something that Kobayashi does when she's drinking.
Oh yeah,
so-
When
they did it
Toru
to
stripped
Quizzicato.
herself and is like, brand me.
Yeah,
that was... What a joke.
But other than that, I mean, I don't have an issue with the fan service part of it as well, which usually, obviously, that's something that really gets to me. But in this series, it isn't, because they've kind of presented it as dragons show up with big breasts because they can kind of choose how they look, and they're maybe aiming for human and getting it like not a little bit wrong, but a little bit exaggerated. So it's it doesn't bother me at all, which has surprised me, I think.
Yeah, a big theme is like dragons just trying to figure out what's up with humans. So
Yeah, and everything about
What
that is exaggerated.
Is up with humans?
Sorry?
What is up with humans?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we find this so funny.
Well,
Only we knew.
that's why I really liked the last episode, because it just focused on Kana deciding to go to school because she was interested,
Yeah.
I guess. And then they actually, like, that episode had a lot of really good dialogue, because at first they talk about, they have that thing with Kobayashi and Toru where they're talking about being different, how if you stand out you might get, like, taken down. And then later on, Toru's talking with Kana about, like, the dangers of maybe getting too invested in humanity. Mm-hmm. And she, like, I can't remember quite how she said it. Kana said she wanted to share in their experiences, but I guess that typically doesn't work out well for dragons who get too close to a human. So, like, I don't know. There's a lot of, you could tell the author thought about it a lot. It's not just like face level, a lot of fan service jokes. It's kind of like there's some deeper thought in between the jokes as well.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense that this came from a light novel. Like, that it started with the writing first.
Oh, was it a
was
light
it?
novel first?
I thought it was a 4-panel.
Oh, I thought it was a light novel first.
There's definitely
I just bought the light novel because I thought, okay, I know there's a manga, but I bought the light novel because I thought that was the original.
All right, well, there is an easy solution to this problem.
Yeah.
Somebody
see.
use to the internet.
Yeah.
To the internet. Let's see. It is originally manga. There are a couple manga
Did not know.
Wikipedia doesn't say anything about a light novel.
Huh.
We
What
can
did I
probably
buy?
see that's an adaptation then.
Did I buy a manga?
Gonna
I got
get
it
a
from
random
7
light
Seas.
novel. It's
Oh my god, like a Chinese knockoff light novel.
a fan novel.
Everyone's like, Miss Kobayashi is so popular, I'll write a light novel.
It's like a
Actually,
Dragon Servant, and they just change the title over, and they send it out. Hong Kong.
I'll let you know what I get.
Yeah.
All right, the next one in the list, ACCA 13. Who's watching this?
I am.
I'm watching it.
It's so good.
Why are you watching it? Why is it good?
That's a really good question.
It's so hard to decide, isn't it? Like, to define why it's good. What's so great about it? Why are we all glued to it?
Yeah. I think the universe has a lot to do with it. Like the very, like the way the way it's structured and the main character's job makes it very easy to have a lot of world building without it feeling shoehorned in. So I think a lot of the world building and like the difference between all of the districts, for one thing, creates a sense of like a really expansive country. And then there's this sort of slow burn plot about the coup going, so there's this sense that like even under a peaceful exterior, like there's something desperately wrong there. You want to find out what's going on.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I like the fact that they're being so imaginative with the different districts as well. Like each one is so different and it's so creative. I was not expecting that at all, especially from a series that's essentially about an auditor, right?
Yeah.
He just travels around auditing people's records. And they've turned it into this really wonderful kind of fantasy.
Yeah, I was not expecting redcoats in the latest episode.
No.
But
It's so well done.
I think while there is a lot of obvious, just like an information dump like that, like a lot of as you knows, and they did that one thing where they were teaching the kids. Although I think that was actually a little bit clever because if they're trying to imply that the state's a little bit totalitarian, of course they would be giving kids that kind of like washed down education, very like propagandized, I guess. But in the first episode, I noticed a lot of things they were doing to kind of make things seem uncertain, because you kind of learn that I guess it's Gene. He didn't want to be in the job that he was, even though he was so good at it, and didn't seem to not enjoy it either. And then you learn that he tried to transfer, but it's been rejected. And he's really good at his job, but people also don't trust him. But then he's also like sharing cigarettes with like 2 of the 5 chiefs. So it's you're getting all this conflicting information about the character, which it kind of like draws you in, very like unconsciously too.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of complicated dynamics going on, but in a very subtle way.
It's really
And
charming too.
How do we feel about the female characters in it? Because on one end of the spectrum, we've got Mauve, who is
my
the
God.
director general of the entire organization. And then
she's
on the
so
other hand,
awesome.
we've got these 3 girls in the office whose job seems to be to eat cake.
Yeah, I'm trying not, like, it's so minor, the girls in the office, like, that I try not to think about it too much. I try to just let it slide. It does bother me a little bit that, like, the girls there don't really seem to take their jobs as seriously as the guys, and they're just kind of silly background dressing. Yeah, it's such a minor thing, and it really only bothers me when they're on screen. But yeah,
It only bothers me when they're on screen. Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, they're very like Arakawa-esque, those 3. But Lot is also a pretty, I guess I don't want to say a major female character. She hasn't really done much yet. But I am like constantly concerned for her now, because she's got Rail like stalking her basically. And then she goes to the castle, and it looks like both the prince and the king took notice of her, and now the prince has a guy in a car following her around. Like during the castle episode, I was just like, she needs to get out of here. Like this is not safe. So I don't know. But besides that, she basically kind of fills the role of the three girls, because most of the time when you see her, she's just eating something really delicious looking. So I don't know quite what to think of that character, I guess.
By the way, I think it's Lottie or Lotta.
Lotta. For some reason I can't remember how they pronounce it. I just know it's Lotte.
Yeah, I think they say Lotta.
Okay. My mistake.
And how about Mauve? Everyone has feelings about Mauve.
Really cool.
She's great.
I think a lot of us have feelings about Mauve.
Mm-hmm.
Can I be her when I grow up?
Yeah.
There's still time. There's always
still
time.
Right? I'm not 30 yet.
So what are what are your hopes for her for the rest of the season then?
I am, I'm seeing. She has a lot going on. She definitely has a finger on the pulse of what's happening, but she also seems a little bit standing back from it. So like I have no idea what's going to happen in this series. I have no predictions whatsoever. So I hope to see her like, having some sort of, being directly involved in the plot, but how exactly? I have no idea.
They definitely laid the groundwork for her to be like a super proactive character. The meeting they had, the dinner, could have just been sort of expositional in that it got us to like sort of start thinking about what Jean would have ended up doing anyway. But assuming they just continue with that plot, she's pretty high up, so I guess it just depends on if Jean continues to like report back to her and what she does with the information. I'm hopeful.
By the way, I just want to add, it was so adorable how overwhelmed Jean was by how hot she is.
Yeah, that was like I don't think anything has riled him up except for that yet. Like he literally got kidnapped and tied to a chair, and he was just completely flat affect. But then she was in the evening gown at the entrance to the restaurant, and he couldn't handle it. What did he say? I'm so thankful I didn't quit. Which is the exact opposite of what he's been saying for the rest of the series.
Just like curled up on the floor of this fancy restaurant. Just can't even deal with it.
Yeah, stuff like that, I think that's what makes ACCA really entertaining. It's just so charming like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, now we're moving into the outright recommendations part. Now, this is outright recommendations based on the premiere alone. That may have changed.
Mm-hmm.
So, number two on the list was Scum's Wish. Who is watching Scum's Wish?
I am watching Scum's Wish.
Yeah, I'm watching.
Am I the only one watching Scum's Wish?
No, I'm watching.
I haven't bought Anime Strike, so I have not watched it yet.
I really need to buy Anime Strike. At first I was mad because I'm like, how dare they charge me $5? And then I was like, I have $5. Yeah. So I will.
I just have a friend who's account sharing because I don't even have Amazon Prime. I have no intention of getting Amazon Prime. But yeah, so thankfully, thanks to this incredibly trusting friend to share his Amazon Prime account, I am able to watch Scum's Wish without committing a crime.
And in the UK, it's through Amazon Prime without Anime Strike.
You don't have to pay for. Okay, fine.
I pay for Amazon Prime, but yeah, I don't have to pay extra for my anime.
Well, Prime's a good deal. I don't think any of us are going to argue against that. I have read the
for
manga.
Amazon, that's interesting.
I think I'm further than the anime just based on my manga reading, though. So
yeah, I've read up to date in the manga. I read it before watching the show, which actually was the only one that I went into actually knowing something about it. And I was blown away by the manga. I read it all through in a day, and then I was so pleased to see that the anime seemed to be mostly faithful to the manga, and not just its content but also its style and its tone. I think it's adapted it really sensitively to that. Anyone else?
Yeah, I haven't been reading the manga, but talking about the tone, I've only seen one other thing. What is the director's name? I've only seen one other thing that he's made, which is School Live, which doesn't seem like my usual sort of thing, because it's moe girls with zombies. But the direction was so well handled in the first episode that it really grabbed me. And I just sort of kept going with it and really enjoying it. Masaomi Ando. So yeah, like I think the direction has been really excellent. And that's definitely part of it.
How do we feel about the representations of sexuality, which is pretty much what Scum's Wish is? Any thoughts?
It helps that like everyone is miserable. So when the lesbian is miserable, it doesn't like miserable gay characters are like such an overdone trope. But since everyone is miserable, it makes sense that the lesbian is also miserable.
It's equality.
Et-chan. I should call her by her name. It makes sense that Et-chan is also totally miserable. And it doesn't feel like, oh, well, of course she would be miserable. She's in love with her straight best friend, which is so overdone.
I mean, in this instance, she's just one of multiple characters who can't be with the person they truly love and get their love in return. At the same time, I'm very interested to know what our lesbian readers might think of her kind of living out this trope of being surrounded by people who maybe dilute the effect. I'm not sure any of us can really comment on that.
Yeah.
But it's certainly a valid point that it's not like she's not standing out that much in the situation. But I mean, the story's so close to the beginning. They're getting through it really quickly, but there's so much more to happen. I'm really interested to see how they actually develop this for a closed 12-episode series.
I can't say it was hard to read, like not because it was bad or anything like that, but just because everybody. It seems like if you're like in this world, loving somebody pretty much is always the most inconvenient person you could possibly be attracted to, and it doesn't seem like anybody's really coping well with it, and they're all doing these very like destructive things to try to, I guess, compensate for the fact that they'll never find happiness. So.
What do you guys
I quite
think
like
of the
the fact...
character? No, go ahead, Amelia.
No, it's okay. What is it? Which character?
Mocha. What do you guys think of the character Mocha?
Oh, that's the little girly one, isn't it? With the
the princess.
The princess, yeah.
I can't stand her, but that kind of character I really struggle with in general. And at the moment, they haven't really done anything with her, so she feels a bit like throwing in this extra character just to prove that Mugi is really popular. But I do know that her story is going to be built on, so I'm more patient with her this time around than I was when I read the manga.
So I read the manga and Mocha was my fave. I just want to say, Amelia, you and me, like, if I love a character, you're gonna hate them.
This is almost definitely true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious because I've seen people tweeting about her, and she definitely seems like a very divisive character. I actually personally don't have strong feelings about her quite yet. I have interesting feelings about her development just from like a like someone who works with children professionally, and like they told her she looked like a princess, and it resonated with her so hard that she like completely changed her behavior just to be perceived as more princess-like. So I thought that was that was really interesting. Like she stopped playing with boys. She wanted to be a princess, so she started acting like this caricature of what she thought a princess should be. And like I have strong personal feelings about people calling their little girl's princess. You know, and it's seeing how preschools have sort of worked with the popularity of princesses to sort of turn that into something empowering for little girls. Like I've seen preschool programs that like talk about real life princesses and how hard they work, and people write books about different kinds of princesses. So at least in childcare in one of the more progressive cities in the U.S., there is a concerted effort, because you're never going to stop little girls from liking princesses, but there's a concerted effort to change the little girl's image of what a princess is to make it empowering. And so Mocha took the concept of a princess and basically turned it into this very strictly feminine, very strictly girly, almost sort of like intentionally spoiled behavior. So that was sort of an interesting thing from my perspective. Just the difference between the way she acts is sort of the more classic interpretation of a princess versus how
the diplomat
we're trying to and sort of like almost the damage that it did just hearing herself being called princess. It just imprinted so strongly on her, and I don't think it's really realistic. Like, it's super realistic that it happened just like that, but the names that you call little girls will affect their perception of themselves, and thus how they behave and how they are expected to behave. So I thought that was really interesting just from a development perspective.
I mean, on the other end of the spectrum, we've got Akane, who in the most recent episode was shown to have had kind of a formative experience as a teenager, where, I mean, spoilers for episode 4, I guess. Is it 4 or 5 we're up to now? But she had this experience where she felt that she could take not the boyfriend, but she could attract the crush of one of her friends. And the experience of taking him and hurting her friend has stuck with her and become something that's just a natural behavior for her. So they seem to put a lot of weight on these kind of one-off experiences shaping someone's personality.
Right. And yeah, and that definitely does happen. I think that's more believable with a teenager who did something incredibly hurtful and had to deal with the consequences than a little girl who gets called something once and decides, oh, this is who I am now.
How do we all feel about Akane? Because she's being set up a little bit cartoon villain at the moment.
I find it really strange that she is a teacher. I feel like she is very she doesn't seem to like other people very much, and she really likes to hurt other people, or at least just, I don't know,
surprised
this dynamic.
Yeah. But let's listen to the teacher now.
I guess it just seems weird to me that somebody who is the way she is would even consider teaching an option, since it seems like it just doesn't fit into like her personality type. But I guess maybe it sounds like maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, I disagree. I disagree with that. I think that the idea that she would take a position of power over rooms full of adolescents, I think that completely fits her personality. And I mean, just teaching in Japan is a very secure job. I've got many friends who've become English teachers in Japan, high school English teachers, and this is Japanese friends, because they say it's really secure and they're paid well, and like maternity leave is good and things like that. So it's seen as quite a desirable job. So she'd be in this kind of plum position, but also have this power to kind of manipulate really easily manipulated people, which seems to suit her very well.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen the latest episode, which sounds like it's the one that really develops her character, but there are definitely people who get into teaching, and not necessarily consciously, but they get into teaching because they sort of see themselves like they like the idea of holding power over people, and being in a position of power that is going to be a lot harder to take away from them because they are working with people who have less power, societally.
Quite vulnerable people.
So she's an umbrage, is what you're saying.
Oh no. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there are umbrages in the world. Absolutely, and they do tend to become administrators. Sorry. Oh, I apologize to any school administrators out there. I'm sure
well, funny you should mention. Right. Funny you should mention problematic teachers, because number one in our recommendations list was interviews with monster girls.
Yeah.
How's everyone feeling about that right now?
I felt like episode 5 was better than 4.
Yeah,
I just watched
agree.
it.
Yep. Yeah,
What?
absolutely.
I mean, I'm still watching it, but I feel guiltier every time I recommend it.
Yeah.
Like, I recommended it to a friend of mine who is, who identifies as transgender, because I thought she would be able to get something very useful out of it, and now I'm like...
I am so sorry.
Yeah, this is how I see you.
Oops.
Oops.
Well, this is it. It's set up with this big disability allegory at the beginning, and I absolutely would have recommended it to disabled friends who weren't familiar with anime based on that. And I'm so glad I didn't, because as the weeks go on and the girls become more, what's the word? The girls become a bit more invested in having romantic feelings for Takahashi-sensei.
Which is pretty normal, but
I
what isn't normal is
that part.
he does seem to encourage them.
That's the issue, isn't it? It's not that they have crushes on their teacher. He treats them well, and he treats them well not despite them being demis, but because they are demis.
And they know this.
They
were
know
like,
this.
oh, Sensei always wants to talk to demi-chans.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have the context that Sato-sensei has, which is like the context of being... kind of fetishized for that or exoticized, and I feel like I wish she could see with kind of clearer eyes how the way Takahashi is treating his students is like a bit of a problem, and I wish she would talk to him about it, but the only one who seems to do that so far is Hikari's twin sister Himari, and a teenager shouldn't be having that conversation with her sister's teacher.
That was a great talk, though.
It was.
When Twin Sis was like, you just like her because she's a vampire.
Yeah,
Name is Himari, by the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
I said that, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I just said Twin Sis because I didn't want to mispronounce Himari.
Yeah, so it's good that she's having that conversation, and she's the star of next week's episode, so fingers crossed for something good there. But I have a horrible feeling it's just going to end with her having a crush on Takahashi-sensei, because that's been the pattern so far.
I don't... when I was in high school, there was a teacher at our school who wasn't traditionally attractive, but he was young. He started teaching when he was 20. So he was young, he was personable, he was a funny guy, and he was really involved with his students. So half of my female classmates had a crush on him, even though he was 5'4" and, like I said, not traditionally attractive.
But and that's so cool, but wouldn't we think wow, what a creep he is if he was calling students in for private talks, just the girls, or I don't know.
See, that's what it is. It's
and that's the problem.
If he had treated all his students in this way, that would be different. As it is, it's the equivalent of some white teacher inviting just the black students into his office to have a talk about why is their hair so curly, or what's it really like having skin that color. That's what it's like.
And
every time I
stories.
see this,
oh my god,
and just tell me about how you feel about sex, 15-year-old student. It's just unacceptable.
That conversation with Hikari was
he's had a couple now that.
It was so it was so inappropriate. I was cringing the whole time. everything else was like borderline enough that I could kind of let it slide. But that conversation with Hikari was like just wildly inappropriate.
And in the most recent episode, he has a moment with Yuki where he wants to take some of her frozen sweat to experiment on it.
Oh, yeah, I was really happy she just went, no way.
But
She's like, no, that's weird and that's really creepy.
Yeah,
Stop.
exactly. And she said, I'm not comfortable with that. And he said, oh, you're so cold. What's wrong with it?
Yeah.
Oh, don't do that, teachers out there. Don't ask to experiment on your students' sweat and then push them when they say no. So,
well, at least she,
interviews with monster girls.
Has it been implied that she has a crush on him yet?
There's been some blushing, but there's been some blushing from all of them at some point. I wouldn't call it conclusive yet.
Okay. Because, she seemed to be the holdout, which I liked that dynamic a little bit more.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was really hoping that they'd use her character to talk about passing when you have a disability, because she can pass, and she tried to pass when she first came to the school, and that actually, caused her problems because she overheated and then had to tell people that she was a snow woman. But I mentioned that in the premiere review, and a commenter very rightly pointed out that passing as a disabled person can be a real hindrance. It can be a real disadvantage, and it can have real social consequences when people feel that you don't deserve accommodations, for example, or when you feel the pressure to kind of represent disability in a particular way. So it becomes a bit more about optics. And I think that would have been so fascinating to explore using the snow woman. And instead they've kind of brushed past that quite quickly. And they're getting to the... Sorry, go ahead.
My boyfriend is disabled. He's blind enough, like his vision is bad enough to interfere with his everyday life, and he, it can't be fixed with glasses. But like he can still like see well enough that most people don't notice. So like he does have like an invisible disability. And he said that like passing has like some advantages, but also some real disadvantages for him.
Yeah, it's a shame that they didn't really explore that with interviews with monster girls. I think they could have done it with Hikari and with Yuki. But yeah, the longer the show goes on, the more it turns into... It's got tones of harm at the moment. I mean, and we'll see how that goes.
Said, the characters all having crushes on Takahashi doesn't bother me. It's just once again, professionally, like the level of how inappropriate these discussions he's having with them just is really, really uncomfortably, and there's a really uncomfortable note of fetishization in how he talks to them and how he treats them, and it's definitely not helped by how there are no male demis represented in the series.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, my magic fix for how things could have been better is Sato sensei being more of a mentor character, or at least being like, even if she can't offer them solutions necessarily, she understands somewhat what they're going through. She has a perspective rather than being a spectator. But they very specifically wrote her as not really being comfortable dealing with her own deminess. So Takahashi gets to be a mentor to her too. Isn't that great?
And the way they actually dealt with Sato Sensei in her episode was so good. I mean, I imagine most women especially would have watched that episode and gone, oh, yes, absolutely. That is exactly right. That, what I have to think about what I wear when I go out in public, and I have to really consider what messages I'm sending out, because it might be, I mean, in her case, it's kind of magical, but it's rooted in a really real everyday situation.
I was thinking about it, and like her condition is almost comparable to having like some sort of like mental disability, like some sort of anxiety disorder. Like she just can't, if you turn it internal instead of external, like she just cannot be like deal with the crowds. She can't deal with living in an apartment. You can even extend it to her being particularly traumatized by men and not being comfortable around men. So like there's a lot of real like applications to her perspective. So yeah, it's too bad. It's just like, oh, I don't know. I don't understand how to sort of cope with this other than these mechanisms that I've come up with, and Takahashi's going to come in and help me realize my true worth.
Okay, I think that's about all we have time for today. Thank you so much, guys, for doing this.
Sure.
This podcast has been an experiment. It's still very much a trial. So if we get feedback that people want to hear more from us and that they would like us to go into detail, for example, do a deep dive into Rakugo one episode and maybe look at different anime in a different episode, talk about different topics, it would be great to know that. And we're really open to feedback. I think we'd like to know, first of all, if people want us to continue and how often they'd like to hear from us and how you'd like us to address different topics. So please give us feedback at www.animefeminist.com or on Twitter at animefeminist or Facebook, www.facebook.com/animefem. And we do have a Patreon. In the last month, we've provided a feminist premiere guide. We've reported on unethical practices in a major anime site, and we've challenged simulcast services on keeping problematic translations unedited. We can only do this because we're funded 100% by readers. We have no conflicts of interest. We have no commercial obligations. So if you support the work we're doing, if you believe in it and would like us to continue, and you can spare $1 a month, it really does add up. So please go to www.patreon.com/animefeminist and send us $1 a month to continue this work. So thank you so much to Caitlin, Lauren, and Peter for this experimental first podcast episode. And please let us know if you'd like to hear more.